Okay, well, I don't think that's happened all year long, so hopefully we don't get shut down again. I don't know what happened. Must have been an internet thing on my end, but I wanted to make sure I got through what it was that I was talking about there at the beginning, which is that, listen, I think that Amari Hampton is the better play over Judkins because of the fact that I just don't trust Judkins anymore with this Browns offense. Like, I really don't think that it's just a situation I can trust at this point. I think at this point, their offense just doesn't look good. They're ready to mail it in anyways. And the matchup versus the Bills today, not that it's a bad matchup necessarily, but I just don't trust it. So I would personally play Hampton today. And then, unfortunately, I do not remember the second part of the question. So hopefully, you'll be back here so I can answer the second part of the question. But until then, we'll move on to Rolly7979. What's going on? So, Rolly asks McMillan or Evans and Dowdle or Henderson. So, McMillan versus Evans is an interesting one because they're taking on each other today. It is a winner go home, basically winner go home for the team who loses. They're not going to make it in all likelihood. So, I think they both have a motivational aspect to it. And I think that both quarterbacks have had their own struggles. And listen, the one thing with Tet over the last several weeks that we've kind of found is that it hasn't been working out very well from an efficiency of volume standpoint. Ted has been able to salvage a couple games of the last 3 games with a touchdown, but his volume has not been great, and his efficiency on the volume hasn't been great either. With Mike, if you looked at what Baker did last week, Baker was only good when he was targeting Mike. So I think that Mike is the better play over Ted McMillan that I would choose personally. And then Dowdle or Henderson. I think that, listen, what it comes down to with Rico is that the matchup is great, but Trayvion's I don't mind either. And when I look at Rico, he just hasn't been the same player since he got injured versus the Packers. Like that's been the thing that I've struggled with from the very beginning with Rico is that it looked good for a while, and then he went down to an injury, and he's been playing through it, but it has not been the same. So at this point, like Trayvion, yeah, it's been, it's still split as far as snap counts go and as far as, volume goes. But last week was a big week. I mean, he did not out-snap Ramondre, but he out-touched him by quite a bit. So at this point, I'm ready to go with Trayvion because he's just a better player. So I'd go Trayvion, and I would go Evans. So appreciate that, and again, sorry about the disconnection there. Hopefully we won't get disconnected again. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And guys, really quick, make sure to post the start-sit poll on fsroundup.com, my site, right now. Because, you're going to give yourself an hour of people voting and helping you out with your decision. And it's free to vote, and it's free to start your own poll. So make sure to go start a start-sit poll before we get too deep and too far into it. And Alias, what's going on? Good to see you in here. Sit 1 if London plays. Godwin, Worthy, Jaden Higgins. Well, I think London is playing, so I don't think you're going to have to worry about that. He's expected to play, and he must be a 3 o'clock game. Yeah, he is. So that's kind of, I don't love that. I mean, as far as we know, London is expected to play. So you're going to have guys that are in that 3 o'clock window. So let's take a look really quick. So Godwin, what time? They play here at noon. So you can't. And honestly, Godwin is not one of those guys where I'm like, okay, just put him in your lineup in case London doesn't play. Like his upside is just not even close to his high. So to me, it's not even worth messing with. I would just go ahead and sit Godwin because and same thing with Worthy. The problem with those two guys is, Jaden Higgins, yes, I don't love the option at all. I think this matchup versus the Raiders is great, but it's going to be a mostly run-heavy game script, particularly in the second half. So he's got a little window that he could execute on, and he's going to have to do that. But the problem with it is that if London doesn't play, you've got one option, and that is Jaden Higgins. And to me, it's not even close. With Worthy and with Godwin, they're not high enough in my rankings for me to justify sitting London if he plays. Does that make sense? So I would personally rather just wait on London, and if he doesn't play, I think he's going to, which is why I feel confident just telling you to wait. So just wait for London, and then if he doesn't go, Jaden Higgins is your guy. So I would personally sit Godwin and Worthy because you have no choice. Godwin and Worthy are playing here at noon. So that's the thing. Appreciate the super chat, man. Always good to see you. X Lick Crew, what's going on? WSG, I can't decide between Etienne and Harvey. Listen, I think that Etienne's matchup today is brutal, but there's a couple things that could work in his favor. Number one is the fact that, listen, Josh Jacobs just went pretty nuclear last week against the Broncos. So if you have a good running back, I know matchup sucks, but you kind of got to ride him. And Etienne's also a pass-catching running back. And the other thing is that there's no Bashal Tootin today, so it's going to be majority Travis Etienne. So Etienne is, like, I worry about matchup, but I'm not as worried about Etienne from the perspective of workload and opportunities. And that's kind of what you can hope for. With Harvey, the problem with him is that the workload is there, but I think that last week kind of proved a point, which is where if he goes up against the tougher defense, he's not like been the most efficient guy this year. A lot of it comes down to volume and touchdowns, because last week, he got stifled for 65 yards on the ground on 19 carries, but he salvaged the day with a touchdown. I think if it was me, these guys are so closely ranked, and honestly, I think if we plug it into the comparison feature on the site, I would bet that the comparison feature would end up choosing Harvey over Etienne, and I think that my rankings would corroborate it. So Etienne is actually 3 spots above Harvey, and I would concur. I would agree with this. I would personally go ahead and play Etienne if this was me. They're very close, though. You could clearly see the 3 spots different ranked. So it is a gut call, right? Like, Etienne does, in theory, have a tougher matchup. So I don't blame you if you want to go against Etienne, but if it's me and my team, I would play Etienne. Appreciate the super chat, man. Jay Tasty, what's going on? Good to see you in here, man. Full PPR start Purdy or Goff. I'm starting Gibbs, Taylor, Olave, and Metcalf. Flexed Watson. Bad game. Who should I flex? Marks, Jones, Diggs, or Myers? So Purdy versus Goff. They're both great quarterbacks, in my opinion, this week. I think they're both fantastic plays. They both have really good matchups. I think if it was me, like, I actually have Purdy higher ranked than Goff, I think. But they're both in the same tier, I remember that. And I personally think that Goff is a better play. The matchup is so excellent. Like, the Steelers are without TJ Watt again, which means they're not going to be able to apply much pressure. It's in Detroit. Detroit's coming off a loss, which means Goff is going to be really comfortable in his home environment, and he's just got a plethora of weapons. Brock Purdy's going to be missing Ricky Pearsall again, and I know Ricky, isn't consistent enough to necessarily miss all the time, because it's like you can't miss someone who's never there. But there is no question, when Ricky is on and he's playing, he does open up a different part of the field for them. So I think I'm going to have to go with Goff, but they're both great plays this week. You're starting Gibbs, Taylor, Olave, and Metcalf, and you flexed Watson. Yeah, that's a bummer. I mean, flexing Watson is definitely going to hurt. Marks, Jones, Diggs, or Myers. Woody, what's the story with Woody? Because I know we've been kind of going through some Woody Marks issues. He's planning to play, which is good. I love the matchup for Woody this week. Aaron Jones, I would rather play Woody over Aaron Jones. So there's that. Diggs is not one of my favorites. I would personally play Myers over Diggs. So it really comes down to Myers and Marks. Here's the thing, is I think that today, I said this a bunch this week, I think Surtain will spend the majority of his time on Brian Thomas Jr. And if you know anything about my channel, you know I harp on the importance of having, knowing where these top corners are going to be lined up. Guys like him, guys like Derek Stingley, Trent McDuffie historically, Quinyon Mitchell, Christian Gonzalez. Like, these are guys that you have to watch out for wide receiver matchups because they oftentimes trail a number one wide receiver. So, in theory, you could tell me, well, yeah, Jacoby Myers is the number one, and I would agree with that. However, Brian Thomas Jr. offers a bigger downfield threat. And I think that's where Pat Surtain spends the majority of his time on today. So I personally am not super worried about Myers' matchup today. Like, there is a clear weakness behind Pat Surtain that can be exposed. And I don't love the matchup. The problem is that, no, that's actually a good thing. So here's the thing. The Broncos and the Jags are playing at 3. The Texans and the Raiders are also playing at 3. I originally was going to say I would play Myers just to make sure you have the play because Woody's a 3 o'clock game. But you're in good position. I think that you're in really good position to, like, if Marks doesn't play, you just go ahead and plug in Jacoby Myers. But if Marks plays, I would play Woody Marks personally. Appreciate the super chat. Jackson Fury, what's going on? Hey, man, love the content. Well, I appreciate that. Marks or Carter today? It's another Woody Marks decision for me. And again, like, Carter is in that 3 o'clock window, so if Woody doesn't go, you could just go ahead and plug in Carter. Now, Carter's going to get the majority of the backfield, which is kind of one thing you have to worry about with Woody. Let's check out Nick Chubb really quick. Last I saw, he was kind of coming back. So let's see. So he's going to play too. You do have to worry about this from that perspective, like Nick Chubb being back in the lineup as well. I would assume will hurt Woody in some capacity, but I just think that the matchup is too good to overlook. Michael Carter is fine. I think that he's a fine play, but I think the upside of the matchup goes to Woody. And I think their floors are probably relatively similar. So I would personally go ahead and pick I'd pick Woody Marks if it was me. But Carter's not a bad play. Like I said, appreciate the super chat. Richard Ellis, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Sit 2 of these players. Henderson, Dowdle, Chase Brown, Ladd, and London. Worried about London being productive. Also, Ladd has a good matchup. Yeah, I discussed it several times this week. I think Ladd does have a bounce-back game. Like, the matchup versus the Cowboys is fantastic. And the only problem I have with Ladd is that Justin Herbert is definitely, like, you could tell that there's just something deeper going on as far as, like, his efficiency as a thrower goes. For 2 reasons. Like, he's injured right now, clearly, and the offensive line just can't protect him. So he's constantly, like, looking over his shoulder thinking someone's going to hit him. That's my one problem with Ladd this week. It has nothing to do with matchup, obviously. I get it. London, like, if you look at the evidence this week alone, right? Josh Jacobs was injured clearly, but he was playing through it. And Josh Jacobs was abysmal last night. Like, he may end up just crushing people this week. So I get where you're coming from. I think with me, though, the matchup was tougher for Jacobs than it is with London. Like, the Cardinals defense has done everything to make everyone feel confident in playing a receiver against them. So if it was me, London would be going in. Now that's the other thing is that it's not that I want to sit Ladd, but I would personally play Henderson over him. But the good thing is you're only having to sit 2. And my opinion on this is that Dowdle, I can't trust him right now because even in great matchups, theoretically, he has not had a monopoly on this backfield enough for me to trust him, and he just hasn't looked good enough for an entire game. Like, how many games has it been where he scores on the first opening drive, and then he's, like, irrelevant the rest of the game for fantasy? A lot. Like, that's happened quite a few times this year. So I'm okay with benching Dowdle, and I'm okay with benching Chase Brown, even though the matchup is fantastic. Like, the reality is here, man, you've got good problems. Like, these problems are good ones to have. And here's the way I'll put it. Chase Brown and Ladd are very close. Like, either way, if it was my team, I would be playing London and Henderson for sure. But if it was my team, I would be looking very closely about what I needed. Do I need a guaranteed 10 points or 12 points? That feels like Chase Brown to me. Like that feels a lot more comfortable than playing Ladd, who I think his ceiling is like 17 to 20. Chase Brown, I would say his ceiling is close to that. But I think that Ladd's floor, as proven over the last several weeks, is pretty low. So I think that's what it comes down to, is what do you need? Because Henderson and London provide you massive upside. And I would say that London's floor is low, Henderson's is good. But from there, what do you need? Do you need a really steady and very reliable 10 to 12? Chase Brown feels more stable and reliable than Ladd does. But if you want to make sure that you can execute on possibly 20-plus point upside, I think Ladd probably is your guy. But it really does depend. If it was me, I'd probably go with Chase Brown over Ladd, but I get your point. Ladd's matchup is great, and it's not that I want to sit him because you've got good problems, but these options, I think I would end up sitting Ladd and Dowdle. Appreciate the super chat. Tommy D, what's going on? Need one running back, one flex, non-PPR. Hampton, Tracy, Genty, Woody. Leaning Hampton and Tracy in both early games, or take a risk on Woody's health. So it goes back to the question of we've seen the evidence this week alone with an injured player who's playing through the injury, Josh Jacobs. It was bad today or last night. That is the problem, I think, is that for example, last week though, Mike Evans came back from injury after missing 8 games, and he was dominant. So it's a toss up with these injuries, and I'm a risk taker. So Hampton to me is going in. I agree with you. But if it was me, I'd play Woody over Tracy, because I think that the thing with Tracy is that the matchup versus the Vikings today is really tough. And I don't hate the play because Tracy does look like he's kind of emerging as that lead back in New York. It is close enough to be a gut call. But Woody to me, health aside, if you had no health issues, this matchup would be, you could not justify sitting Woody over Tracy when Tracy has the much tougher matchup. But I get it. The injury factors in. Very well could be a healthy dose of Nick Chubb today. I just think that if it was me, I'd be playing Woody for the ceiling. But it is close. I think it is one of those, again, where it just depends on what you need. I think Tracy can give you 6 or 7, and Woody doesn't have that floor because of the injury. But if you need 6 or 7 points, then go with Tracy. But if you want 20 plus, I think Woody can do that today. So if it was me, I'd be going with Hampton and Woody. But I don't think Tracy's a bad play. Either way, Genty's going on the bench because Genty, I do not trust this offense at all. Even with Geno back, it is so bad in Las Vegas right now, and the matchup obviously sucks. So Genty is an easy bench, but Hampton is an easy play as well. Appreciate the super chat. Michael Merowitz, man, good to see you in here. One running back, one wide receiver, one flex. Half PPR in the ship. Let's go. Thank you, brother. No, dude. No need to thank me, man. I'm just happy to be here with you guys. There's literally nothing else that I love more than watching y'all do good. That makes me happy. I love being a part of y'all's journey because it's fun, man. Tracy, Rico, Hall, Hampton, Woody, Tet, Sutton, Wilson, Zay, and Egbuka. Here's the thing with the running backs, man. The running backs are so similarly ranked. I think that from the matchup perspective, Hampton, Woody, Breece Hall, they've all got really good matchups. I throw Rico in there too. Tracy, to me, has a really rough matchup. I do not trust this Vikings game. Vikings they have a lot to show these last several weeks. They're essentially just trying to find out if J.J. McCarthy can play. And so their team is putting up a lot of effort. So I think for me personally, Tracy is not my favorite play this week because the Vikings are still putting in a lot of effort. So I just think that these running backs, man, this is a tough one. Rico, I don't trust the efficiency. Brees, I don't trust anything about the offense. But I have a sneaky feeling with Brees today. I really do. I don't know what it is. The matchup is obviously like one I feel like you take advantage of. And in theory, like you can't trust them. But I just have a sneaky gut feeling with Brees today. Hampton, I do think, is a really good play because of matchup. And then Woody, again, matchup too. I'd play Hampton over Woody because I can trust the health of Hampton. And Woody may very well be in a split just like Hampton will be today. So I could go ahead and rule out Woody and Tracy and Rico. It's between Brees and Hampton. And I think that I'd go with Hampton because Hampton feels like the safer play. But I will tell you this, like Brees, I feel like does offer that 20-plus point upside today. I think from a safety perspective, I would personally go with Hampton. Like I would go with Hampton today because he feels like more of a lock to give you 12 points. Like Brees, you have no idea whether he's going to give you 12 or what. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. My dog is here. He wants some attention, so. I think if it was me, I'd go with Hampton. The wide receivers, Tet, Wilson, Sutton, Zay, and Egbuka. I'll go ahead and bench Egbuka because I can't trust him right now. Oh, man, it's so similar to your running backs. It's like there's no obvious answer here. Tet matchup is great. I'm leaning Tet. The thing with Michael Wilson today is that Marvin, the matchup is great. So, like, it's one I want to take advantage of. And Marvin is in this position to where I saw that they're going to, like, he's going to play injured. And he was saying, like, I'm good enough to play. But I'm kind of, I also read somewhere that they might, like, kind of ease him back in today. So, I'm not as off on Michael Wilson as many might be. I'm actually okay with Michael Wilson. Jeez. I'll tell you what. Because of the fact that I can't trust Bryce Young, I would personally play Wilson. I personally would because I still feel like even like what we've seen, it kind of reminds me of Emeka Egbuka at the beginning of the year. Egbuka have been so dominant for the Bucs that it was like you could never take the role away from him. And I feel like even with Egbuka's struggles recently, he's been getting targets. I think with Wilson, the thing is that you can't really take this role away from him because he's been so good in it. So even with Marvin back today, I kind of just feel like Wilson's going to have another good one because the matchup is good and he's just done too good to just take it away from him. So I think if it was me, I'd be playing Michael Wilson. Now the flex is tricky because once again, I mean you've got so many options. Like to me, it's between Brees and Tet primarily. I think Zay is a fine like ceiling play, but the floor is non-existent. I think Tet's floor will raise this week because of how bad the defense is. Honestly, I think I'd go with Tet. I think I would. I think I'd play Hampton, I'd play Wilson, and I would play Tet. That's how I would do it. Good luck to you, man. Appreciate the super chat. You've got some really tough options there, I will say. Azer B, what's going on? PPR start Harvey, Hampton, or Sutton. I will say this. I feel like Sutton is far enough away from all those other guys. I'll bench him because Jacksonville's secondary has been their strength. So I think I'm good with benching Sutton. Harvey, in theory, matchup is tougher than Hampton's, but I think with Harvey, the workload has been too consistent. And you really haven't seen like a bad game from Harvey since J.K. Dobbins went down. with Hampton, I don't think that his ceiling is what Harvey can give you. And I think they both have relatively similar floors today. So if it was me, I would go with Harvey. Appreciate the super chat. J-Rose C7, what's going on? Pick 3, BTJ, Diggs, Buka, Estime, Jordan Mason, happy PR. You know, the funny thing about Estime is that some of you know I go through off-season research about surprising league-winning running backs, and that was how I found Chuba Hubbard last year. Estime was surprisingly on there, so I drafted Estime in best ball, and I'm just thinking to myself, none of those Estime teams moved on in best ball, but how great would it be if they did? Because he's coming into play at the perfect time. I mean, Estime really does have a great matchup today against the Jets. In theory, you'd think that he would be starting. And I think if it was me, he would go in. Like, I would play him over Jordan Mason. I would personally play him over Diggs. So Estime is in. Like, if it was me, Estime is going in over Diggs and Jordan Mason. And I think that Egbuka, in spite of the struggles, is going to go in because BTJ, I don't think, has the ceiling of Egbuka. And again, I think BTJ will be matched up with Pat Surtain today a lot of the day. So I think you've got to factor that in. So I think with Egbuka, you could count on the targets being there. You cannot count on the production, but the targets will fall his way at some point. Maybe it won't matter, but I think that you've got to factor in this matchup and say to yourself, J.C. Horn, that's another good name at corner. He will be matched up a lot with Mike Evans today. So Egbuka does have a path. And I know it sucks, but I will play him over BTJ. And honestly, the matchup with BTJ scares me so much, I might end up playing Diggs. Jordan Mason, to me, is not going in. I just don't trust Mason's. Like, Mason has no ceiling past, 15 points. He just doesn't. So, Mason is out. Diggs and BTJ, the secondary in Baltimore is so beatable. I think I'd go with Diggs, honestly. I really don't like BTJ's matchup at all. I really think that he's going to struggle today. He may get 3 points or 4 because of one big play ultimately, but I just worry about that matchup. I don't worry about Diggs' matchup. The thing with Diggs is that you have to factor in that receiving core is it's like Russian roulette. So I think if it was me, I would personally go with Egbuka, Estime, and Diggs. Appreciate the super chat. Javon Grubb, what's going on? Which defense, Bengals or Ravens? I don't think I could pick the Ravens tonight. Ravens going up against New England. I don't think I could do that. The Patriots could put up points, man. The thing with the Dolphins is that in theory they can put up points, but they've got a new rookie quarterback I'd rather take the shot on. Whereas with New England, they're coming off a loss. It's a must-win game to keep their divisional hopes intact because Buffalo's going to win today. And New England needs to win tonight. So I just don't think I could pick the Ravens. In theory, the Ravens have a better defense than the Bengals, but it's not by that much. So I think I'll take matchup. I think I'll take the Bengals. And it feels crazy. Don't tell anyone I said that because I feel crazy doing it, but I think I'd rather take the opportunity of a rookie quarterback over a team that feels like they could put up 30 tonight against the Ravens. In theory, I guess the Dolphins could, but yeah, it's a tough one. I wish you had better options. I can tell you that. I'll go with the Bengals. Appreciate the super chat. Rush the GOAT, what's going on? Dart or Lawrence, pick Wilson or Bowers at the flex. For another league, pick 2 at the flex. Dowdle, Hampton, and Egbuka. So Dart versus Lawrence, when I ranked quarterbacks this week, I don't know how many people commented, but I'm sure there were people who were wondering where Lawrence was. You know, he puts up 40-plus points last week, and it's how could you even fathom, not having him in the top 16 this week? Well, it's because he's playing the Broncos. That's the reason. And if it was in Jacksonville, I'd actually feel more comfortable. Not that, the Jags fan base is – maybe there's some Jags fans in here. I would love to see them, but I don't see many Jags fans. In my day-to-day life, not run into many Jags fans, if any at all. So, like, the Broncos, in theory, would travel better if it was in Jacksonville. But it's in Denver, and that condition of playing there with the thinner air, I just think so many factors factor into this. Denver's defense is elite. I don't like Lawrence this week. I think Dart, if you just look at Dart from a game log perspective, he has not had one awful game. He's had one bad game where he had like 12 points. But that's it. Like, every other game has been like 20 to 30. I mean, he can give you 30. I do not think Lawrence could give you 30 today. And even with the matchup I don't love against the Vikings, I still will take the rushing upside. So I think for me, I'm going to go with Dart. Wilson or Bowers, the flex. That's tough. Here's my fundamental theory on this one. So when it comes to Brock Bowers, I was asked about him several times this week, and I kept getting to the same point, which is, listen, the matchup is brutal. However, Trey McBride just put up 37 on the Texans because there's a little something called garbage time, right? And what we saw, and I said this heading into last week with the Raiders, is that this offense is about to look much worse with Kenny Pickett. And they didn't put up a point, right? Like, that was me trying to prove a point and saying that Kenny Pickett is worse than Geno Smith. As bad as Geno has been this year, Kenny is awful. So I think with Geno back, like, there is that threat of getting 2 touchdowns. And I think that that's possible. Now, with Michael Wilson being in the position he's in, great matchup, but Marvin coming back, there is like a little uncertainty there. So they're very close. It is close enough to be a gut call. I think if you need floor, I'd go with Wilson. If you need Michael Wilson to give you 7 to 10 points, I think he could do that. Brock Bowers is either going to get you. Brock Bowers could give you a range of outcomes. Like, he could give you 4, or he could give you 24. Right? And I don't see Michael Wilson having the 25-point upside like he has been, to 30-point upside like he has been. I think Michael Wilson's ceiling today is probably around 20. So I think if you need that 5 or 6 extra points from the ceiling, Bowers is your guy. But if you are in position to where it's like, just don't mess it up and you'll win, then Michael Wilson is a safer play. And then for your different league pick 2, Dowdle, Hampton, or Igbuka. I'm going to have to go with Hampton. I think that the matchup is the greatest. Not that the other matchups aren't good. They are pretty solid. But I think that Hampton, once again, I think what it comes down to is that if you look at Hampton and his involvement in the offense the last several weeks, yes, it has been an in-theory split backfield, but Hampton continues to provide the big play upside and the big run upside. So I think Hampton has a chance to go nuclear today. So I'm going to go with Hampton. With Dowdle, I know the ceiling is capped, but like Buka, the floor is non-existent. So you give me the floor-ceiling combo of Hampton, and I'll take that. Appreciate the super chat. Joel, what's going on? Full PPR, RJ Harvey or Hampton, and Purdy or Dak. I think I answered the RJ versus Hampton question earlier. Listen, I'm going to go with RJ Harvey because the one thing with Harvey that we've found is that the upside is big. Like, the upside is like 25 with Hampton. And I think the floor is better than – or I'm sorry, the upside with Harvey is like 25. And I would say that the floor of RJ Harvey is like 8 to 10 because his volume – has really stabilized to a point you can trust. Like, post J.K. Dobbins, Harvey has been very involved on a weekly basis. Like, he's getting basically 20 opportunities per game. Hampton has not gotten that yet. So, yeah, in theory, the matchup is better with Hampton, but I'd rather take the guy I know we can get a safer floor and probably the same level of ceiling out of, which is Harvey. So, Harvey, to me, is the play. Purdy or Dak? This one's pretty easy. I'd personally go with Purdy. Dak's got several issues on his hand. Number one, the offensive line is not protecting him because they are missing a massive piece at tackle. And the Chargers have been a really good defense. And on top of that, one of his best playmakers is a head case right now, because this has always been my problem with Pickens, is that he goes in the tubes. And I think he's been there the last several weeks. And whether or not he gets out of it today remains to be seen. But all I know is that the Chargers is a really tough matchup. Like, Chargers defense has been very good, particularly against quarterbacks. And Dak has had his struggles lately. So if it was me, I'd be going with Purdy against that softer Indianapolis defense. And I just trust his offensive line more to protect him. So I'd go Purdy. Appreciate the super chat. T. Martinez, what's going on? Pitts or Jones at the flex? So Pitts or Aaron Jones? Interesting question. But pretty easy, and I'd go with Pitts. And the reason why is because with Aaron Jones, your best case scenario with him all year, this is not just today against the Giants, and I get it. The matchup in theory is great. But every game this year, your best case scenario with him is that he'll get you 15 points. Because he gets you 15 opportunities on a per-game basis, maximum. With Pitts, like, obviously what you saw last week will not happen again, particularly since London is back. But, man, I just think that with Pitts, like, you can still get, like, 17 or 20. And I think that their floors are relatively similar. So it's a relatively easy one for me. I'd go Pitts because there's just no best case scenario for Jones that would be better than Pitts. So I'd go Pitts. Appreciate the super chat. Okay. Where am I? Joel, what's going on? Okay, yeah, I answered that one. Full PPR, RJ Harvey or Hampton. Purdy or Dak. Yeah, I'd go Purdy over Dak, and I would go with RJ over Hampton. Appreciate the super chat again. Joel, Purdy or Dak. Yeah, we got that one, Purdy. Appreciate all the extra super chats, but usually, like, if you leave me just like a public service announcement, if you leave a super chat that's like blank, I'll just like look for your name, and if you're close enough, I could usually find your question. So obviously, it's better to put the question in the super chat, but I always try to find them. But again, appreciate it. Happy Dad, what's going on? Full PPR, Dak or Herbert. I have CD, Waller or Schultz. Dak and Herbert are close enough ranked for me where I could justify going with the stack. So I'd personally go with Dak. I like Herbert better than Dak this week for sure. And if you didn't have CD, I would say Herbert would be my play. But stacks work in fantasy, and if you have a good day from the Cowboys, you're going to have a really good outcome in fantasy. So I would have to say Dak because, again, it comes down to how closely I've got them as plays. I think Herbert and Dak are probably like 4 or 5 spots apart in my rankings, and that's close enough where I can justify going with the stack. So I would go with Dak. Waller or Schultz. I like Schultz today. I also like Waller though. Here's the thing. I think if you need like 6 to 8 points today, I think Schultz is your guy. But if you need 20 to 25, I think Waller for sure. Like Waller to me, I would personally, like, the reason I put it like that is like I don't want people to take unnecessary risks today. Like if you're in position to where it's like just don't mess up and you're gonna win. Like, in other words, don't put in like a risky play and you're gonna win, then Schultz makes more sense. Like the way I play, this is just like how I've historically played, and it's brought me a lot of success, is I always go for upside. So like Waller to me is like the better play. Like Waller gives me the most upside versus Schultz. Like Waller, the only question I have today is that it's a new quarterback, but the matchup is fantastic. The Cincinnati Bengals have been shredded by tight ends all year. So, like, in my opinion, Waller is the better play, but I will say this, Waller does not have the floor that Schultz has. So, it really comes down to what you need. If you need 6 to 8 points from your tight end, Schultz is going to get you that. But if you want 20-plus and you need big upside, Waller is your guy. Appreciate the super chat. And Darnold Schwarzenegger, what's going on, man? So torn between Rico and Harvey. Help. I think it's a relatively easy one. I would personally go with Harvey. Once again, Harvey, what we've seen since what week was it that JK went down? Let's go look. RJ Harvey, since JK went down, has been pretty much locked and loaded. What was it, week 10? Week 10 is when JK went down. So let's look since then. RJ, he had 11 rushing attempts and 3 targets, so 14 total opportunities his first game post J.K. Dobbins. Then in week 12, they had a bye week. Out of the bye week, he had 13 rushes and 4 targets, 17 opportunities. Week 14, he had 17 rushes and 6 targets, 20-plus opportunities. Week 15, 19 carries and 1 target, 20 opportunities. So what I'm trying to tell you is that we've seen enough from RJ's workload to believe that we're getting a really solid floor. And his ceiling, as proven what we just went through, is 25. Now with Rico has not, since he got injured, given you 25. He hasn't given you 20 since he got injured. His problem is upside because he is not the same level of efficiency that he once was. So Rico, the matchup, in theory, sure, it's better, but there's been so many times where Chuba has stepped in and Chuba has taken the work, or Rico has a drive where he gets like 2 yards on 3 carries. Like, this is just we've seen too much, and the trend is going towards RJ Harvey. So I would personally go with Harvey. Appreciate the super chat. Bogus Edits, what's going on? Advice, please. Full PPR, help choose 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end, and 1 flex. From Justin Jefferson, Godwin, Mike Evans, Kyle Pitts, and Kittle. Puka gave me a boost, so low-risk picks are fine. That's good. Good context for sure. If you've got a context situation like this, please give it to me because a lot of this is going to be dependent on what your situation is. And I think since you've got Puka, you can basically play safer, right? And so it's not that you don't want to go for upside because I'm always an upside guy, but you don't want to throw guys out there that have the chance to give you nothing. So for me today, like, Godwin's got a chance to give you nothing. Like, Godwin might give you nothing, and at best, he can give you 12. So, like, Godwin is an easy guy to bench. Mike Evans versus Justin Jefferson, you could argue with me that their floors are relatively similar, but what we've seen from Justin Jefferson for weeks and weeks and weeks is, regardless of matchup, and he's had great matchups over the last several weeks, it just isn't working. Like, it's not working. It's very similar to Egbuka, although I would argue that Baker is much more likely to improve and get Egbuka catchable balls than J.J. McCarthy is over these last several games. So for me, like, Justin Jefferson is a bench as well. I would personally play Mike Evans as the wide receiver because I just think that Mike is better quarterback and the matchup is also pretty good. So I would personally go with Mike Evans. Kittle is definitely the play at tight end. That's not even a question. Much better play. The flex is going to be between Justin Jefferson and Pitts. I think that if it was Pitts by himself, I would go with Pitts. But since London is back, what we saw with the London absence over the weeks was that, like, Kyle Pitts without Drake London was very good. And, you know, with London there, he isn't the same guy. So, like, you kind of look at the games with London, right? So week 11, for example, Kyle Pitts was pretty irrelevant. You know, week 10, another game where he just wasn't good enough. So I think that he's more of a riskier play with London being back than Justin Jefferson is. Because, you know, the one thing I will say with JJ, the one thing I will say with Justin Jefferson is that you can kind of count on them giving him opportunities on a weekly basis. It hasn't worked, but the opportunities will be there. We're not for sure if Pitts will have as many opportunities as he's had the last several weeks. In fact, I would bet against that. So I would say Justin Jefferson is my flex, Mike Evans is my wide receiver, and Kittle is my tight end. Appreciate the super chat. Nicholas Bond, what's going on? Okay, just update. This is very, very important. Just got this update. Woody Marks is expected to be inactive today, guys. Make sure to adjust anything I've said about playing Woody Marks. Woody Marks is a 3 o'clock game, so that means that any guys that you need to play in this noon window in the next 15 minutes, you need to make that change. So make sure you know this. Woody Marks expected to be inactive. This is a problem. Make sure you know this, guys. So Nicholas Bond, I'm going to try to get through like as many questions as I can over the next 15 minutes or so, because we're going to have a lot of Woody Marks reoccurring questions just now. So just know if you send me super chats, like I'm going to answer, but I'm going to try to make it through as many as possible. So Nicholas Bond asks, half PPR, I bench Stafford, and opponent has JSN and Barkley. That's tough. So you need some ceiling. Should I start JJ or CJ at quarterback and Waller, Schultz, or Jawan at tight end? I would personally start JJ McCarthy for the upside. You need upside right now. So I would go JJ McCarthy and Waller, Schultz, or Jawan Jennings at tight end. For upside, once again, I would go with Waller. You need upside because you bench Stafford. You're going against JSN and Barkley, who combined in a half PPR probably gave your opponent like over 40 points. So you need upside. So you need to catch up. I would go with J.J. McCarthy for the upside play over C.J. Stroud, and I would go with Waller as the upside play over Schultz and Jawan Johnson. Appreciate the super chat. 11-11-1 super, what's going on? Tet or Pickens? They're both similar. I would say that Ted McMillan is in position to where you can kind of like the matchup better, but Pickens obviously just has a higher ceiling. It's tough, man. I think if you need 30 points, you got to go with Pickens, but if you need, their floors are really similar. I think if it was me, like the floor is still very close to where I would just justify it in my head and go with Pickens. Because you look at Ted, like the last several weeks, and I know it's worked out better the last several weeks prior to this week, but like this past week, he had 4 targets and 4.5 fantasy points. That was a solid matchup against the Saints. The week prior in week 13, he, in a game where they should have done really well, had 1 touchdown that salvaged his week, and then the same thing in week 12. He had 8 targets, but only caught 2 of them for 1 touchdown. So I think the floors are relatively similar. I would just justify it and go with Pickens. Appreciate the super chat. Nathan Hilton, what's going on, my man? Good to see you in here as always. Merry Christmas right back at you, brother. Please help pick 2 wide receiver, 1 running back and 1 tight end, and 2 flex and 1 defense. Hampton, Tracy, Marks, Harvey, Warren, Higgins, Pickens, Mike Evans, Nico, Kincaid, Gadsden, and I could pick up Schultz, Broncos defense starting, picked up Vikings or Niners. Okay, so Hampton, Tracy, Marks, Harvey, Warren. So again, goes back to if you have Woody Marks, he is expected to be inactive. We just got that update about 5 minutes ago. So make sure everybody knows this. So Marks is out. I'm going to personally go with Harvey as my running back here. It's between him and Hampton, but again, I think what it comes down to, and I've answered this one several times today, workload. Workload, I can trust more with Harvey than I can with Hampton. I like Hampton's matchup better, no question, but we've just gotten to a point where we can kind of expect an 8 to 10 point floor for Harvey and a 25 point ceiling for him. I think Hampton, you kind of have to work to get a 10 point floor. I think his floor is probably closer to 6. So I would go with Harvey. Higgins, Pickens, Mike Evans, Nico. My wide receivers I'm going to play T. I am personally going to play T, and I'll personally also play Nico. Your wide receivers are definitely the strength of your team. So I would imagine we're going to have at least one of them in the flex. I would go with Nico, and I would go with T. I think both those matchups are great. Kincaid or Gadsden, you could pick up Schultz. Honestly, I think I'd play Schultz over both of them because I think that matchup is great between the other two, but I think the matchup is better for Schultz. Actually, no, since you're starting Nico, I'm gonna mitigate that risk. I would go with Kincaid. Kincaid to me is a better play. The tight ends are the most important pieces in Buffalo's offense. So I would go with Kincaid at the tight end. And just to mitigate the risk of having two Texans in there. And I just think Gadsden, I can't trust him. So I would go with Kincaid. So we've got our two wide receivers as T and Nico. We've got our running back as Harvey. And we've got a tight end as Kincaid. So we need two flexes. One of them is going to be Mike. I'm putting Mike in for sure. And then between Pickens and Hampton, who are definitely my top two, I think I'd go with Hampton, actually. I think that's good enough for me to justify it because I think his ceiling is about the same today. I think Pickens definitely has like a higher ceiling by about 5 or 4 points, but I think his floor is lower than Hampton's today by about 5. So I think that floor-ceiling combo for me is better with Hampton than it is for Pickens. So I would personally go with Hampton and Mike as my two flexes, along with T. Higgins and Nico, and at the wide receiver, and then Harvey is my running back. Kincaid is my tight end. So your defenses between Broncos, Vikings, and Niners, I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stick with the Broncos. The Broncos, the way they're playing right now, is so good. It's lights out. They're at home. It's another good matchup. Not a great matchup, but like they can get turnovers. They can get after your quarterback. I think they're going to do that today. I trust them more than the Vikings. And the 49ers, I was right on last week. Their defense just isn't good. So I don't care what matchup is. I would personally go ahead and play the Broncos. Appreciate the super chat, man. Good luck to you, Nathan. Always good to see you in here. Daniel Martinez, what's going on? Flex Coker, Monty, or Pollard, full PPR. Here's the thing with Monty. I think Monty actually does have a potential good game in his arsenal today. I think the thing with him is that you're either getting a touchdown from him or you're going to be unhappy. And I don't really want to do that game because I think that you could get better upside from Pollard and Coker. Like, I think Coker, honestly, is a solid play. And honestly, if Pollard was still playing the way he had been, I would personally pick Coker. But Pollard, the last 2 weeks, man, they have done a lot to get him the ball. And I don't think this Chiefs and Titans matchup is going to be out of hand. Like, I really don't. Gardner Minshew is clearly a downgrade. They have no Rashee Rice. Like, they're decimated in Kansas City. I think they're going to keep it close. So if it was me, I'm going to go with Pollard. Appreciate the super chat. Dizzy B, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Rice is out. Flex Shakir or Michael Carter. I'd go Michael Carter here. I think Shakir is just he's too volatile, man. He is a guy that can get you 0. And he could get you 17, but I think Carter can get you 17. But his floor is like 6 to 7 points today against the Falcons. So I would personally go ahead and play Carter. Appreciate the super chat. Stunna Hayes, what's going on? Olave or London? I would go with, that's tough, man. They're both good. You got to worry about it with London, but that matchup, I don't think I can go against that matchup, man. I get it. Olave's matchup is great too, but I think the matchup for London today, man, I mean, the Cardinals have done nothing but get absolutely obliterated by all wide receivers. They're very close. This is probably the closest question I've had today. I would go with London if it was me. I would want to get that 30-point nuclear upside. And I think that Olave's floor is higher. Like, I would say that Olave's floor is probably around 10 today. And London's is like 5. So I would say that the floor's definitely better with Olave. but the ceiling I think is a good at least 5 points higher with London. So if it was me, the way I'm wired, I'm playing ceiling. But if you need a safer play, Olave is the guy. But if you need, and you need to make up ground, you need to make up points, I would personally go with London. Appreciate the super chat. Marion Garcia, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Message is in the chat. Okay. Full PPR, projected to lose by 30. Need upside. Okay, so this is the good context that I need for these questions a lot of times because there definitely is going to be some differences. So you need the upside. Pick one, Genty, Shakir, and Worthy. I think the upside is probably on the side of Shakir's out for me. I don't think that he's got great upside today. I would either go with Worthy or Genty. And I think with Genty, the matchup is so awful that it disgusts me. And Genty, realistically, like, he is not giving you many upside games over the last couple months, right? Like, I'm going to go ahead and rule him out. Like, I'm going to overlook the matchup last week against the Eagles with Kenny Pickett. Like, these are our recent games with Geno. Like, Geno, the matchup and the upside is just not that high. Like, this Browns game, you know, he did really well, actually, but I think if it was me, man, I would be chasing the ceiling with Worthy because he's basically the lone man. I mean, him and Hollywood Brown, they're going to make up a majority of that work in the passing game, and they're a pass-first team. They don't like their running backs, so I think I'd go with Worthy. Appreciate the super chat. Okay. Jal, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Where are you? Flex Sutton or Evans from Jal. Okay. I would personally go ahead and play Evans. Yeah, I think Mike is just a better play. Sutton, to me, I think a lot of things could go wrong today. Mike, unless he gets injured, that's the only thing I see going wrong. Baker had the most success as a quarterback when targeting him last week. I'll go with Mike Evans. Appreciate the super chat. Jeremy Cody, what's going on? Jones versus Tracy. Half PPR. I would go with Tracy. Yeah, I think Tracy's upside is just better, and I don't think their floors are that drastically different. If anything, Jones has like a 1 point higher floor than Tracy, so when I can get 20 points versus the upside of 15, I'll always go with the 20. And I think that's what Tracy can give you today. Even though the matchup is tougher, but I'll go Tracy. Appreciate the super chat. Z Equilibrium, what's going on? Jawar or Monty, my finals this week. Thanks, dude. Yeah, I think I'd go with Jawar. Again, if you missed the update, Woody Marks expected to be inactive today, so make plans accordingly. And Nick Chubb is also injured. So it's like, Nick Chubb, I can't imagine having more than 15 carries today. I just can't. Maybe he gets 15, but like 17, I don't think he's doing. I think Jawar Jordan will be involved. And Monty, I think the upside is touchdown or bust. So I'd go with the game script today, and I would go with the player I think has opportunity to get like potentially 17 plus opportunities, which is not going to be Monty. I'd go Jawar. Appreciate the super chat. Wyatt Gualo, what's going on? Flex 1, Evans, Warren, Tracy, or Hunt? Oh, Mike Evans for sure. Yeah, Mike Evans to me. Upside is the best, and I don't think the floor of any of those guys is drastically different. I think, if anything, Mike probably has the higher floor of the bunch. So Evans to me is definitely the play. Appreciate the super chat. Armando Chavez, what's going on? Morning. Evans or Gainwell, look for safe floor. Good point. Man, that's tougher, actually, because I think they both have pretty good upside. Kenny, the problem with Kenneth Gainwell, as a Steelers fan, sometimes does get a little phased out of the offense. So I think that the game script today is going to be very pass heavy because they're going to have to play catch up. if you look at Kenny's recent success, it's been in closer games or games that they've done really well in. The game where they got crushed by the Bills, Kenny was largely irrelevant. So I don't love Kenny today. I think his floor is relatively low. Now, the ceiling, I would say, is probably in the 20-point range, but I think his floor is in the range of 5. I don't think Mike has that floor. I think Mike probably has an 8 to 10-point floor. The only thing I think that goes wrong with Mike today is if he gets hurt. And that is a serious concern. But I think game script is what I'm more concerned about with Kenny. So I would personally play Mike Evans. Appreciate the super chat. Anthony Bucaferni, what's going on? Evans or CD at my flex, non-PPR, and bonus for 100 yards. Ooh. So you kind of want to chase the ceiling. You're being incentivized to chase the ceiling. I think for me, Mike has the better chance of doing that. I really do. I think CD is obviously going to be getting targeted as usual, but it's a tougher matchup today. And recently, he put up 111 against the Vikings defense in garbage time, a lot of it. But, CD obviously is great. I don't know what I'm doing. Acting like CD can't get there is crazy. But that matchup, man, against the Chargers, it's tough. I think I'm going to the matchup, but I would go with Mike. They're both great options, obviously. Non-PPR, too. I think Mike is the play. Appreciate the super chat. Bo on 4-on. What's going on? Burrow or CJ have Nico down after more game. I would personally... if you have that stack, I would go with CJ. But if you don't have Nico, I would go. If you didn't have Nico, I'd go Burrow. But since you have that stack, I'd go CJ. Appreciate the super chat. And then our last super chat is PO8690. Hey, bro, standard league, flex Dowdle or Evans. In a standard league, that clearly changes things. I think I'd go with Evans still, though. I think Evans has the higher chance of getting multiple touchdowns. I think Rico could get a touchdown, but I don't think he's getting 2. I think Evans has a better chance of getting 2 touchdowns. So I would go with Evans personally, but they're close. Non-PPR obviously changes things. I just don't trust Rico right now. Appreciate the super chat. Okay, we got 1 minute, so I'm going to try to rapid fire. Tet or Wilson? I would personally go ahead and play Wilson. Jennings or London? I would go with London. Harvey or Tracy? I would go with Harvey. Brees or Estime? I would go with Brees. Close, though. Tet or Ladd? I would go with Ladd. Olave or CD? I'd go with CD. Michael Wilson, JJ, BTJ, or Egbuka? I would personally play one, and I would play Michael Wilson. Olave or CD? I'd go with CD. McConkey or Evans? I would personally go with Mike Evans. All right, guys, it's noon. Appreciate all y'all being in here. Let's get a win. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel to show your support. Love all you guys. Wilson or Harrison? I would go with Michael Wilson. Let's get dubs today. Just enjoy yourselves. Watch some football. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy the process. This is what fantasy football is all about. Love you guys. Good luck to everyone out there, and I'll see you later. Peace.